Hello everyone, my name is Jahanvi Singh and I am first year B.Ed student from Army Institute of Education, Greater Noida. And today my topic is communicative approach to English language teaching. Communicative language teaching method. In this video we are going to talk about 7 major points. First, background history, principle of CLT, role of student teacher, techniques, advantages, disadvantages, and at last we will conclude this video by giving some conclusion. Starting with the background history, the origin of the communicative language teaching are found in the changes in the British language teaching tradition in the late 1960s. Until then, situational language represented the major British approach to teaching English as a foreign language. In English language, teaching language was taught by practicing basic structures in meaningful situation-based activities. The method came as a reaction against the grammar-based approaches such as audiolingual method and GTM, grammar translation method of foreign language instruction, that ignored that the goal of language learning is communicative competence. In 1971, a group of experts studies the need of European language learners, and in particular, a primary document was prepared by the British linguist D.A. Wilkins. He proposed a functional or communicative syllabus for language teaching. His contribution was an analysis of communicative meanings that a language learner needs to understand and express rather than describe the core of language through traditional concepts of grammar and vocabulary. Although he was a pioneer of the communicative language approach, even he had not used the word communicative competence. This method was truly influenced by the concept of communicative competence that was proposed by Delhans. Communicative language teaching. What is communicative language teaching? Communicative language teaching is an approach to the teaching of second and foreign languages that emphasizes interaction as both the means and the ultimate goal of learning a language. It aims to increase the communication ability of the students in order to enable them to cope up with their communicative needs in target situation. Now next, principle of communicative language teaching. First, language learning is learning to communicate using the target language. Second, the language used to communicate must be appropriate to the situation and the roles of the speakers, the setting and the register. The learners needs to differentiate between a formal and an informal style. Communicative activities are essential. Activities should be presented in a situation or context and have a communicative purpose. Typical activities of this approach are games, problem-solving tasks, and role play. There should be feedback involved in these activities. Next, learners must have constant interaction with and exposure to the target language. Whenever possible, authentic materials should be used. What are the roles of the teacher and student in communicative language teaching? Let's start with the teacher. Role of teacher. The role of teacher is to be a facilitator of his students' learning. He or she assists learners by providing them with framework, patterns, and rules to develop their communicative language skills. A teacher evaluates not only the students' accuracy but also their fluency. He can informally evaluate his students' performance in his role as an advisor or co-communicator. During the activities, he acts as an advisor, answering students' questions and monitoring their performance. He also acts as a counselor. Now, role of the student. The student role is over here is a negotiator. Since the teacher's role is less dominant than in a teacher-centered method, students are seen as more responsible managers of their own learning. Now, what are the techniques of communicative language teaching? Communicative language teaching uses almost any activity that engages the learner in authentic communication. There are some learning and teaching techniques that can be used in communicative language teaching class. For example, role play, information gap, language exchanges, discussion, game, pair work, and group work. All these techniques can engage the learners in the communication process. Now we will talk about communicative language teaching advantages and disadvantages. Let's start with the advantages. Communicative approach is much more people oriented because it is based on people's needs and interest. Meaningful language is always more easily retained by learners, seeks to use authentic resources, and that is more interesting and motivating for children. Children acquire grammar rules as a necessity to speak, so is more proficient and efficient. It provides the opportunity for the students to be aware of their abilities and exhibit them. Communicative language teaching believes that the communication is the fundamental objective of language, and the learners need to develop all four skills of language, that is reading, writing, listening and speaking. Now, disadvantages. It is felt that there is not enough emphasis on the correction of pronunciation and grammar error. Communicative language teaching approach focuses on fluency but not accuracy in grammar and pronunciation. The communicative language teaching approach is great for intermediate students and advanced students, but for beginners, some controlled practice is needed. The approach does not focus on error reduction, but instead it creates a situation where learners are left using their own devices to solve their communication problems. Thus, they may produce incoherent, grammatically incorrect sentences. It is difficult for a non-native speaking teacher who is not very proficient in teaching language to teach effectively. Teacher training and certification is required for those teachers. Now, let's conclude this whole video. Communicative language teaching is the best considered an approach rather than a method. Approach refers to a diverse set of principles that reflect a communicative view of language and language learning used to support a variety of classroom procedures. Communicative language teaching has passed through a number of different phases to apply its principles to different dimensions of the teaching learning process. The first phase was the need to develop syllabus that was compatible with the notion of communicative competence. This led to proposals of syllabus in terms of notions, a context in which people communicate, and functions, a specific purpose for a speaker in a given context. Thank you. I hope you will like this video.